Tonight, news strikes in Gaza after a proposed ceasefire deal falls apart. Terms accepted by Hamas, but unacceptable to Israel.
When we get a deal in place and we can start seeing hostages get back with their families, that'll be encouraging.
A stunning admission from an alleged serial killer in the deaths of 4 Indigenous women.
Now the question is not did he do it, but why did he do it?
Plus, a pastor's escape at Sunday sermon, the live stream takedown of a gun-wielding man in church.
I'm thankful to God that I'm still here.
Also, a new crackdown on short-term rentals to ease a housing crunch.
How do we put our arms around this whole new type of accommodation?
And Drake versus Kendrick.
He just acting like an activist is make-believe.
Inside the bitter battle between 2 of the world's biggest rappers.
You're not a rap artist, you're a scam artist with the hopes of being accepted.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. A significant escalation to the conflict in the Middle East tonight, even as Hamas said it had accepted the terms of a ceasefire proposal by Egypt and Qatar. In Gaza, scenes of celebration followed that announcement, but Israel said there is no deal yet and that it is sending a delegation to negotiate. Also today, Israel's military told 100,000 people to evacuate parts of Rafah, as Israel's war cabinet unanimously approved a targeted operation there against Hamas. More than 1 million people are currently sheltering in Rafah. Canada, the U.S., and the UN, as well as others, have warned an offensive there would have catastrophic humanitarian consequences. CTV's Mike Couture on the developments.
As dusk fell in Rafah, celebrations poured into the streets. Displaced Gazans like Musaf fell to her knees, giving thanks. I can't describe my joy to you, she says. My children have been living the life of tents. We bid farewell to the tents. As leaflets warned of an impending Israeli push into Rafah, Hamas accepted the proposed ceasefire brokered by Egypt and Qatar. According to Al Jazeera, the deal would be 3 phases of 42 days each, including a ceasefire, a hostage and prisoner swap, and a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. Hamas said it would not back down from its demands, and Israel calls what's on the table far from the necessary requirements. Late this afternoon, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet unanimously decided that it would continue the military operation in Rafah.
We don't see any other option but to fight for the lives of Israelis that are held captive by Hamas. And so we have to move forward.
A move that some security experts warn could damage Israel's reputation.
The area that people are supposed to flee towards is far too small. There's not sufficient housing, electricity, water. It appears once again that the Netanyahu government is not concerned about the security of the civilians.
In Tel Aviv, protesters believe this deal is the best hope they have at getting hostages from the October 7th attack back home.
Stop the killing, save lives of hostages and lives of Israeli soldiers.
U.S. officials who are helping mediate the talks remain cautiously optimistic.
We'll be encouraged when we get a deal in place and we can start seeing hostages get back with their families.
Aid agencies worry a new offensive will completely choke off humanitarian supplies to Gaza, and they warn it will result in even more civilian deaths. Omar.
All right, Mike, thank you. Columbia University became the latest American school to cancel its main commencement ceremony. The school says it's opting for smaller ceremonies over safety concerns. The New York campus has been the epicenter of pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the U.S. Students there are among the nearly 2,500 who have been arrested at more than 75 campuses across the U.S. And pro-Palestinian protesters at McGill University in Montreal say their meeting with school officials did not lead to a resolution. They're demanding McGill divest from companies that do business with Israel. The encampment is now in its 10th day, and while the university says it is seeking a timely and peaceful end to the encampment, it is not commenting on the discussions. The Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition denounced the surge of anti-Semitism on Holocaust Remembrance Day, the first to be marked since October 7th.
Too often over the past months, Jewish Canadians have felt and have been isolated and unsafe in their communities.
We must condemn and defeat the ugly 20th century ideologies that are recurring again.
The solemn service was held at the National Holocaust Monument. 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis between 1941 and 1945. A new report reveals cases of anti-Semitic incidents have surged in Canada, more than 5,700 in 2023, which is more than double the year before. More than half the incidents happened in the 3 months after Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. A Winnipeg man whose lawyers today admitted their client killed 4 Indigenous women say he is not guilty of the crimes. CTV's Alison Bamford on the legal arguments and the emotional response from family members.
An emotional day inside a Winnipeg courtroom. Family members hearing that Jeremy Skibicki admits to killing their loved ones.
I don't even have any words. It was just kind of a shock, but we're so happy.
Skibicki charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and an unknown woman. Police believe Harris and Myron's remains are in a landfill near Winnipeg.
This man has killed 4 of our women, and he will be held responsible.
But that's what Skibicki's lawyers are arguing against, saying he's not criminally responsible for the deaths due to a mental illness.
Now the question is not did he do it, but why did he do it?
It's a defense legal experts say is difficult to prove. In these types of cases, the accused undergoes a forensic psychiatric assessment.
The critical component is having a physician or someone who is trained in identifying the disease of the mind to identify if the disease of the mind was present on a balance of probabilities at the time of the alleged incident.
Legal experts say an NCR case can see delays anywhere from a few months to a year, but the families are holding out hope.
It's been all about justice for my cousin, and we're going to get it. We're going to get it, and we're going to get all 4.
If the judge disagrees with the defense, Skibicki could be convicted of first-degree murder. If he's found not criminally responsible, a review board would determine what happens to him, which could include time in a psychiatric facility. But before it gets to that point, there's still a lot to unfold when trial resumes Wednesday. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
A new fine was imposed on Donald Trump for violating a gag order. The judge overseeing his criminal hush money trial in New York has fined him $1,000 and is now threatening to send him to jail.
Frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day.
It's the second time Trump has been fined for verbal attacks on witnesses and jurors. Today, a Trump employee told the court the former U.S. president used his own personal bank account to reimburse Michael Cohen for hush money payments made to an adult film star. If convicted, Trump could face a maximum of 4 years in prison. A Pennsylvania pastor is crediting divine intervention after an armed man pointed a gun at him and pulled the trigger, but the weapon failed to discharge.
And God had chose. Jesus!
The pastor says the gunman smiled at him before the deacon jumped the attacker.
I'm seeing, what happened, and I'm totally grateful, but I'm really starting to process it right now.
His wife watched in horror.
You ask yourself, is this really happening?
The attacker was charged with homicide, aggravated assault, and reckless endangerment. And just hours later, his family found what they say is the attacker's older cousin fatally shot inside the attacker's home. No charges have been filed in that investigation yet. 2 of the victims of last week's wrong-way crash on the 401 were cremated today. Grief etched on the faces of family, saying a final goodbye to the grandparents killed in the collision. They'd come to Canada to visit their 3-month-old grandson, who also died. The surviving parents of the infant issued a statement saying, "We are at a complete loss of words to describe the agony and vacuum in our hearts." 3 men accused of killing a Sikh separatist leader in a Vancouver suburb, sparking a major diplomatic confrontation between Canada and India, are expected to appear in a BC court tomorrow, days after they were taken into custody. Tonight, BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson has the new footage of the takedown.
In newly obtained video, heavily armed police surround an Edmonton home before an arrest outside.
Exit out the door with your hands in.
Investigators have confirmed this is one of the 3 men taken into custody in Edmonton Friday, charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The men, all Indian nationals who'd been in Canada for 3 to 5 years. The arrests are a relief for the Surrey, BC Sikh community, who are also left with a lot of questions.
How the suspects were able to come to Surrey, how they arranged a vehicle, how they were weaponized, who helped them, where they stayed.
BC's former Minister of Public Safety says criminal groups often work across provinces.
They come out here, they do whatever they need to do to either intimidate or kill someone out here, and then they flee.
The arrests also bring a new sign of tension between India and Canada. India's foreign minister on the weekend suggested Ottawa is allowing criminals into the country.
Number of gangland people, number of people with organized crime links from Punjab have been made welcome in Canada. We have been telling Canada, saying, look, these are wanted criminals from India.
Nijjar was a key figure in the Sikh separatist movement, which made him a wanted man in India, where he was labeled a terrorist. Prime Minister Trudeau sparked diplomatic fallout between the two countries when he said Ottawa was investigating India's potential role in the killing. RCMP have confirmed they are also looking into a link. Ottawa has repeatedly insisted India has not proven people it accuses of terrorism are doing anything that meets the threshold under Canada's criminal code. The 3 men facing murder charges in the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar are set to appear in a BC courtroom tomorrow. Omar?
All right, Andrew, thanks. The federal Liberals are proposing new measures they say will increase transparency over foreign influence. If passed, the bill would give more power to Canada's spy agency and create a new foreign influence registry. CTV's Judy Trin has the details.
Moves for leave to introduce a bill.
Canada is going on the offensive against foreign actors undermining democracy.
Canada is a strong, open, and free democracy. These strengths, however, can make Canada a target for those who wish to advance their interests to the detriment of our own.
The bill requires people who pressure Canadians on behalf of foreign governments to register. It also changes the CSIS Act to allow it to provide more information and gives the spy agency more power to investigate. It also turns foreign interference into a criminal offense. A conviction can come with a maximum $5 million fine and/or up to 5 years in prison.
It enhances our ability to address transnational threats or violence by foreign governments and those who work on their behalf, who attempt to intimidate people living in Canada and their families abroad.
Under the Act, CSIS can share information outside the federal government. It can warn provincial and local governments, along with private companies and academic institutions.
In the past, where CSIS was blamed for not sharing, only taking, they now have the legal authority to pass that on. And this will have a huge significance in the foreign interference one with respect to members of Parliament.
The public inquiry revealed that CSIS was hamstrung by national security concerns that prevented it from passing on information to political parties. In 2019, China likely interfered in the Liberal nomination race of Han Dong. And in 2021, there was intelligence Conservative Kenny Chiu's re-election campaign was derailed by Beijing.
They finally succumbed to the demand by human rights groups, by myself, but also cross parties, parliamentarians' demand.
It will take at least a year after this bill is passed for it to become law. The pressure is now on all parties to debate and vote on this act so it makes a difference in the next election. Omar.
Judy, thanks. Coming up, an expanded Airbnb crackdown.
How do we put our arms around this whole new type of accommodation?
Changing short-term rental rules to help address the housing crisis.
I was trying to get it on my own.
And when I wake up, I recognize you looking at me for the pay cut. Bahamas, I be looking.
Plus, 2 hip-hop heavyweights battle it out.
skimming. And let me tell you about my life. Painkillers only put me in a twilight.
WestJet has announced it has reached a tentative agreement with its mechanics union. The Calgary-based airline had issued a 72-hour lockout notice on Saturday after the union announced a strike vote. Terms of the new contract have not been made public. Around 670 unionized engineers and skilled trade workers still need to ratify the deal. As warmer temperatures start taking hold across Canada, many are starting to think about summer holidays, a time of year when there is generally increased demand for short-term rentals, which are facing tighter rules and regulations. Here's CTV's Garrett Barry.
A warm, sunny day. It feels like summer's just around the corner in St. John's, bringing a ton of tourism.
We had to figure out as an industry, how do we put our arms around this whole new type of accommodation.
Newfoundland and Labrador is changing standards that will tighten rules for short-term rentals like Airbnbs, pushing operators to now follow the same rules as the bigger players on insurance and fire safety.
Suddenly, you don't meet egress windows and you have to face the prospect of putting in 4 or 5 egress windows in your basement apartment. You might say, no, that's not really for me.
But across the country, in British Columbia, short-term rental owners are facing a bigger crackdown. The province says too many houses are being used as rental units instead of permanent homes. Starting this month, in cities like Vancouver and Victoria, people will be banned from owning properties solely to rent them out on sites like Airbnb. That ban has put one rental manager out of business.
They were doing the business above board, and it was sanctioned in these areas. It's really taking away their property rights as they knew them and as they purchased these homes.
In Ontario's cottage country, the township of Muskoka Lakes is debating rules that would force short-term rentals to register and to get up to code. The mayor says some rowdy visitors have become a big problem.
They come in, they're making noise, they're partying excessively, music, fireworks, they're defying fire bans.
In St. John's, some advocates were hoping policy would go further, make it even harder to operate a short-term rental in order to help with the housing crunch in the city. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
And a quick note, if you still prefer the post over email, as of today, it's going to cost you more. Stamps sold in booklets are up 7 cents per stamp to 99 cents. And domestic stamps bought individually go up to $1.15. Last year, Canada Post reported a $748 million loss before tax. Still ahead, crushing a culinary record. Breaking bread and a record for the world's longest baguette. A couple got quite the surprise while cruising in their car on an Arizona highway. A snake somehow snuck its way and hitched a ride on their windshield. The couple say they were driving for almost 45 minutes before they even noticed anything. The snake eventually slithered off safely. And 18 French bakers have taken the record for the longest baguette ever made. At more than 140 meters, it's about 8 meters longer than the previous record held by the Italians for almost 5 years.
More rules must be met than just the measurement. The hygiene laws must be abided by locally. The ingredients must be traditional ingredients used, as well as the traditional cooking method for making a baguette. Finally, it must be one continuous piece with no breakages.
A mobile oven had to be built for the occasion, with the bread cut up with chocolate and hazelnut spread and shared with the public. A more sumptuous menu at this year's Met Gala, minus chives, onions, or garlic. 3 ingredients the event's host, Anna Wintour, has banned for causing bad breath. On the iconic staircase, stars showcase their looks. Zendaya embodied the year's theme inspired by Sleeping Beauty in a royal blue and emerald green dress. And South African singer Tyla made her Met debut in a dress that was a bit tricky to walk in, requiring her to be lifted up the stairs to the New York Museum. It was better late than never for one lucky Beatles fan who received a personal reply from Paul McCartney 6 decades after she professed her love to him.
And Paul McCartney, if you are listening, Adrian from Brooklyn loves you with all her heart.
Hey, Adrian, it's Paul. Listen, I saw your video. I'm in Brooklyn now. I'm in New York. I finally got here. We've got an exhibition, photo exhibition. Come along and see it.
Sir Paul issued the invitation at the launch of a photographic retrospective of the early days of Beatlemania, when the band's first American tour skyrocketed them to superstardom. The exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum runs until August 18th. After the break.
Just as a reminder to myself, I wear every single chain, even when I'm in the house.
My mama, I love her, but this what I like, Lord knows. 20 of them in my Chevy, tell them all to come and get me.
The rap battle between two of hip-hop's biggest names.
Gangsta silence for the record. Tell the world I know it's too late. Boys and girls, I think I've gone great. Trying to decide my face is.
A battle between two of hip-hop's biggest stars continues to spiral. CTV's Adrian Gabriel on the Discord.
In the rap game, beefs between artists have been around nearly as long as the genre.
And when I wake up...
Though rarely do we see dueling diss tracks on the level of Canada's own Drake and Compton's Kendrick Lamar square off in a heavyweight lyrical battle.
I think this is insane.
The artists have released no less than 11 songs, detailing serious allegations against each other with piercing precision. The small sample includes this Kendrick track called Euphoria, a play on an HBO series with the same title, produced by Drake. The lyrics speak for themselves.
I make music that electrify 'em. You make music that pacify 'em.
2 days ago, Drake dropped this reply.
Always rapping like you about to get the slaves freed. You just acting like an activist. It's make believe.
I've met Drake twice. I've actually met Kendrick also.
Music journalist Rudy Blair believes this beef has roots as deep as Drake's career.
When it comes to street cred, Drake has never really had that, even though he's tried with the look, the swagger. People are just like, dude, you're always going to be the wheelchair kid in Degrassi.
When our pride was low.
It appears that Kendrick isn't the only one living rent-free in Drake's head. Fans have also taken to Google Maps and renamed Drake's Toronto mansion as owned by Kendrick.
His home is Kendrick's home right now.
The feud also has Canadian Grammy Award winner The Weeknd siding with Kendrick, sending musical jabs of his own in Drake's direction. While the fight might be far from over, multiple critics believe Canada's very own may be down for the count.
This could definitely affect his future. If I was Drake, honestly, I would lay low.
The clear winner on the streets might actually be New Ho King, a Toronto restaurant mentioned in a lyric by Kendrick, then used as a backdrop in a music video by Drake. The Chinatown Eatery, now the recipient of a wave of hungry music-loving customers. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
And that's a snapshot of this Monday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.